recording, and that looks good. And all right, Michael, I think you were on the podcast. Thanks for being here. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty amazing. How about you?
I'm doing great. For a Monday evening over here, what about 3 hours behind, or ahead of you? So I'm doing pretty good. It was a good Monday to start the week out of. But what I want to talk to you about, what kind of sparked my interest on you, that I guess first off, I noticed that you're an author, you're an entrepreneur, a coach. You got some yoga going on. I mean, you just seem like you've always had a man of many hats. Is that just how you always been in your life, or something?
Absolutely. I like to joke that if I went to some psychiatrist or something, they'd probably say I had ADD. Instead, I like to call it being passionately diverse.
Ooh, I like that better. Yeah, you're just interested in so many different things. And
I might as well live life on the things that I'm interested in, and not just like, I'm not a single focus guy. I can focus really easily on one thing when I need to.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to do lots of things. So I'm going to do lots of things.
Yeah, no, I relate a lot to that, just because I like learning new things. I like trying new things, and it keeps my mind going, keeps me challenging myself, keeps me occupied. And it's fun. Then, if you don't like something, then you just move on to the next.
Just do something else.
Yeah. And that's cool. I mean, I'm glad. I feel like a lot of people don't really find that in life or try that. They just want to either stick to one thing or try nothing at all. What do you think?
Yeah. And, I think part of it was growing up. My dad was an entrepreneur. He owned multiple businesses, and he liked to do multiple social type things, personal type things. And so it's always kind of been there. It's kind of inbred it.
Yeah. That's a good point. Cause I've always asked other people that if they feel like that entrepreneurial spirit or whatever their family did was just kind of inbred into them as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've noticed things like that. And, from my mom and my dad, like, like I see them do something and I think I do that too a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think as we get older, both my parents are passed now, but I think as we get older, I find that I do more and more things that my parents used to do. And some of those probably drove me crazy when I was younger, right?
I don't doubt it. Because that's how I would be. I feel like every kid at one point just like, oh, I don't want to be like my mom and dad at all. Or then they grow up, they end up start becoming like more and more like, and it's just becoming more self-aware. Like, oh yeah, I guess I am starting to be more like my old man or my mom or something.
Yeah. So I did want to say to you, Chris, I know that you recently had your 100th episode, and I was listening to that show, and I love this idea of the loose cows running around.
Yeah, that's a little bit what's going on over here in Virginia. We're in a very, very rural part of Virginia. So if you know where DC is, I'm probably 3 hours southwest of that. So I'm like in the tip of where North Carolina meets Tennessee, West Virginia, and all that. So it's not a lot going on around here. So it's mainly farmland, a couple of universities, regular manufacturing plants, and that's about it. But and speaking of that, my dad, he was a dairy farmer, and and so like in the town I grew up in, was literally all cornfields, no stoplights. There's 2 little general stores. It was actually called a community, not even a town.
Right.
And so, it was one of those things that it was just cows would just randomly get out, the dairy cows, and just, I don't know if a fence post broke or whatever. Just, people would call me, hey, your dad's cows are out. And like, we should go, you should do something. I was like, well, I'll call him, I guess. I mean, I'll get him to go round them up.
Yeah. Well, they'll come back. They'll find the salt licks and, they'll come back.
That's usually what it was. They would just kind of roam around the edge of the fence, and they're just like, how do we get out? How do we get back in now?
Yeah.
It was just kind of like, just push them like, no, go over here.
Yeah. We have a lot of BLM land where I live, and a lot of cows wandering around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it beef or dairy? Do you know?
Pardon me?
Beef or dairy cows?
Yeah. D for dairy cows. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the beef cows, beef cattle?
Oh, beef cattle. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We, we have, my dad just mainly did dairy cows, but there's a mixture of like he has a couple brothers who dabble in beef cattle only, not the dairy part of it. So yeah. But anyway, we didn't come here to talk about cows, I guess.
Well, maybe. Who knows? Why not?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like maybe we did. I don't know. But it's but that, I guess that is a pretty speaking of modern times with cattle and, grass-fed beef and factory farming, it is pretty different topic that we could definitely go down a road on if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm not going to start down that rabbit hole.
Okay.
Too far. I was going to say something, but I held back.
Okay, no big deal. Yeah, don't.
Yeah, but the thing again, I wanted to really congratulate you on your 100th episode. That was huge.
I appreciate that, and this is. I don't know if you heard this before, if I said it before, but this was a big deal to me, or one of the biggest things I've ever tried in my life. I feel like exposing myself and being really vulnerable, putting this type of conversations and myself out there like this. And so making that far was a big milestone. And I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, it's huge. And from what I can hear and what I've heard from some of the episodes I've listened to, there's a lot of diversity in your guests and your topics. And I love that. It's like this conversational idea. Let's have a conversation, talk about life.
Exactly. Yeah. And, that's, I was talking about this just before, but when I first started this, they're like, what is your podcast going to be about? And, it's going to be about CrossFit, fitness, because that's, what a lot of people know me from. And, and I was like, well, that's cool. And I want to talk about that, but I don't want that just to be what I'm known as. And I don't want to pigeonhole myself into one set topic. And I want to be able to have conversations like like we just said, that, a trainer, being a yoga coach, an entrepreneur, and just to see what your walk of life was. And that's because that's interesting to me, and I know like you were talking about your ADD or whatever, but my brain would just start to get bored. Just like, all right, I've already heard these fitness competitions or fitness conversations before. There's nothing new to gain for that for me. So I want these type of conversations and something that we would have sitting at a coffee shop or whatever your favorite beverage is or whatever, just talking, having that human connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I feel
it's interesting because one of the things that I do today is I spend a lot of time focused on really storytelling and helping people bring their stories out, whether they're talking on podcasts, whether they're talking on stage, whether they're talking in a relationship, it doesn't matter. It's just like helping to understand and realize those stories that we have in life, and especially stories that other people may need to hear. Right. So like another podcast you had with Susan Jane, you were talking about something totally different. You were talking about intuition and reincarnation and spirits versus ghosts and all these things. And there's somebody that heard that episode that needed to hear that episode.
Yeah. Yeah. And that stuff is cool to me, just that when I first started listening to podcasts, I was maybe 5 years ago, just listening to them. And it was just like, cause I got tired of listening to music and I learned it's like, man, these people, what their stories are telling and their life experiences and what they've done is just, mind blowing. And I never knew that there was, alternative ways of, wellness and fitness, thinking about, spirits versus or being spiritual versus religion and, or, how the, big things now are me is like mindfulness and things. And it was like, wow. And instead of like watching the news or watching, your movie or your favorite person you're listening to and listening to that 2-minute explanation they get, that we could have these long drawn out conversations of actually like, why does, Michael, think the way he thinks, why, they just take a snippet of, I think all cows should be free and whatever. Why, why does he think cows should be free? And then that's like what they label you as. You're a cow or a guy that thinks cows should be free. And it's like, well, no, what's reason. Let's see what he thinks, let's have this long conversation about it.
No, Chris, that was last week. I thought that. I'm not sure about this week. But that was last week.
But that's also cool though. And then to your point that, having these conversations, like, you might teach me something tonight about, I don't know, yoga, entrepreneur, or whatever we want to dive into that. It's like, oh yeah, that makes more sense than what I originally thought on it. And that's a better way of thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you want me to tell you something a little bit about yoga and fitness that I didn't know?
Yeah. Hit me.
So I don't know how much whether you dived into my book or any part of my story at all, but
a little bit.
In 86, I had vascular disease and my right leg was 100% blocked and my left leg was 65% blocked. And they performed what's called a FemPop, which is femoral popliteal artery graft. Essentially, it's a bypass surgery on my legs.
Okay.
And within a few months, my legs had reblocked again, and they wanted to do more surgery. And, I'm 27 years old, right?
Sure.
27, turning 28 years old. And, I was a young, immortal man. And I told them in no uncertain terms that they weren't going to take my frickin' leg off at all.
Right.
And the second time around, when they wanted to do more surgery, and I was surrounded by surgeons in my hospital bed, they were there saying, if you don't do this, you're going to lose your legs in a couple of months and you're going to die in a few more months. And I left the hospital AMA against medical advice and got a cane, and I was walking on a cane like I was some old 90-year-old guy that had blocked arteries in his legs, right?
Sure.
And so this is where the fitness part comes in, and the yoga part comes in as well, is I ended up at a rehabilitation center in Southern California. I grew up actually in Beaverton, and ended up at a place in Santa Monica called the Pritikin Longevity Center. And when I got there, the doctor there said, when you are walking and it hurts, keep walking. Well, this was directly different than what the surgeons were saying at OHSU, Oregon Health Sciences University. They were telling me when it starts hurting to stop.
Okay.
Well, what the doctor again said is, said, go out there on the boardwalk, because it was right on the boardwalk at Santa Monica, right by the pier. And if you walk down about a mile, you end up at Venice Beach, which you may have heard of. That's like Muscle Beach and all that kind of stuff down there. And so the doctor down there said, when it hurts, keep walking. And he says, just go out on the boardwalk and walk. Well, I got to be honest with you, Chris. When I got out there on the boardwalk, there was a lot of girls in bikinis on rollerblades. And I got to tell you, as a man, I was not going to look like a weak man, like getting fan kicked in my face or something, right? So I was going to stand tall.
Heck yeah.
I was almost running.
I heard you.
I would walk down, and what the doctor told me, he says, when you're walking into that pain, the reason you're getting the pain is you don't have enough blood flow in your legs.
Okay.
So it sends signals back to the brain that you need more blood in your legs. So what happens is you start building new collateral blood vessels. And so as I did this process, when I started out, I was walking maybe 10 feet. Within 2 weeks, I was walking 2 miles.
Wow.
Strong and tall. Again, a very simple thing about fitness, the idea of walking, right? That was it. And it changed everything for me. Wow. It helped to restore me back to health.
Wow.
So as a fitness guy, sometimes, I know for me as a yoga guy, that sometimes the simplest things are the best and the healthiest, right? I mean, even just bicep curls. If you just think about the simplicity of bicep curls, right?
Sure.
It's not a difficult thing to do.
It's not.
You just go, like this with the weight in your hand, right?
Exactly.
Some people might start with a can of soup in their hand because they're so weak, right? Exactly. And they build themselves up. But whether you're holding that can in your hand or a 20-pound weight, it's the same action.
I agree.
The action doesn't change. No, you can get into different things, but the basic thing is simple.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And just touching on what you just said, that, and I agree a lot with that reasoning, justification, just to keep walking and keep moving, even if it hurts. That I have a really weak ankle, and I'll be walking down the sidewalk and it would go out just because from basketball and everything. I just never. But it was used to be when I first did it that the science was like, right, what is it? Rice, rest, ice, compression, and elevate, and just sit and do nothing, just let it heal. But now it seems like more people are actually starting to say, no, if you can actually move it some and walk on it, or keep blood going to it, that you will get more benefits of it. It'll try to become more of a natural or heal back naturally that way. And that's in the last time I rolled it. That's what I did. I had to modify some of my workouts, but I still was able to, for the most part, move on it. And it healed up quicker, I think. And a lot of people might disagree with me on that, and maybe a few scientists, but there is some logic to it. Just the body's not made to move and just sit and, be stagnant all the time.
Right. Well, they say what ages us is when our joints start to freeze up. And if we're moving, body in motion stays in motion. If you look at the people that live any length of time, they're in motion. They're rarely just sitting around on their couch, right?
Exactly.
They are moving. My grandfather, one of my grandfathers lived till 96 years old. He was in motion, and he grew up on a farm. We were talking about that earlier, and grew up on a farm and, just kept his body moving.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's what I feel like our bodies were designed or made to do. If you could look at, way back in time, when we didn't have cars and bikes or whatever, that's what people did. They walked, they ran. And if you look at early, human beings, almost all of them are fit. They weren't eating constantly all day, and they were putting things their body doesn't want. That was never, even sugar was not really made back then, I guess, and that was just all certain foods, and like whatever they were able to eat, that's what they did.
That's right.
And one thing and I love that point you brought up, that what a lot of people don't get is that they're like, oh, I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't, I can't work out or whatever. And it was like, you can do something so easy. I mean, you can sit down and do bicep curls. And even if you don't have any weights, you can find, like you said, a can of soup, or if you want to move up, get a gallon of milk or a paint bucket.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah. There's tons of laundry detergent. There's tons of things you can do. And then if you want to add other things, you can hold them on your shoulders. Like you said, do presses. You can start doing squats. I mean, you can look, and plus with the information age, I mean, there's so much content out there as far as podcasts and YouTube. And if you want to do something nowadays, I mean, there's really no more excuses anymore. I mean, you can do it if you really want to.
You can learn how to do anything today.
Exactly. Yeah. That YouTube University. I mean, that's part of how I started this podcast, was just looking up stuff and what other people were doing, and then, figuring out what works and what doesn't work along the way.
Yeah. And, think about it too, as far as like walking. If you walk 2,000 feet, 2,000 steps, 2,000 steps, it's going to take you about 20 minutes, and it's about a mile. And, we got the heart in our chest, right? And we think that that's, the pump for all our blood, right?
Sure.
Well, it is, but there's actually 3 pumps in the body: the heart and your calves. You got a calf in either leg. And so as you're moving and your calves are pumping, you step, release, step, release, step, release. Your calf is going, going like this, and it's helping the blood flow through our whole system.
That makes sense. Never thought about that. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So just that motion,
Yeah, just something as little as that. And
I would add something to that since we're talking. At the same time, you could do some bicep curls and have your headphones in and listening to Chris's show, his different episodes.
I mean, that's one of the cool things. I mean, you can do all that stuff and still, and that's usually how I'm an audiobook guy. That's what I do. When I'm at work or when I'm taking my dogs for a walk, I mean, I just slap those in or listen on a podcast or whatever, get my book in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. You can do so much at once now. I mean, if multitasking is an art, but, it works, I think. Yeah. I mean, I think it might be different from everybody. And, a lot of people say they can't comprehend that way, but I think it's a matter of just learning what works for you, like you did. You just seeing those girls, like, I'm going to keep walking. I ain't just thinking,
I'm going to stand tall for this.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, was that disease, was that just rare that came about? Was that something that's part of your family or hereditary? Is that the word I'm looking for? But
well, yes. I mean, the doctors didn't really know. Let me add a couple of things.
Okay.
When I was 12 years old, I was in a water skiing accident.
Ooh.
And it was all internal injuries. They thought I was just kind of bruised up at first. And then the next day I was having surgery. I was 12 years old. And I woke up about 10 days later from a coma. And I found out I had 60% of my liver removed, gallbladder, cracked ribs, collapsed lung, 21 blood transfusions, and the coma. And, I was not expected to live at all at that time. The doctors didn't expect it.
Sure.
Right. And I had a near-death experience, and not quite as much as your guest Susan, Jane did, but I had a out-of-body experience, and I came back from that, but I didn't want to come back. I wanted to stay where I was. Right. So I come back.
You wanted to not come back to your body?
Right. I wanted to stay where I was.
Okay.
And as I was coming back, I was reaching back out and saying, I don't want to go. And they told me you weren't done yet. Well, that's 51 years ago. They didn't tell me how long it was going to take to be done, but I guess I'm not done yet. Maybe after your podcast, I'll be done. I don't know.
No, man. Whatever you're doing, it's working though. I mean,
yeah.
So
to your question, and I'll make it this long story short. They can read the book if they want to read the book.
Sure.
Is I got really pissed off at God for a long time.
Okay.
And I started drinking too much and smoking pot and, all that stuff, hanging out with all the wild guys and wild women and, all that stuff, and having a lot of fun and, speeding up to when I had my surgery on my legs and I had the blocked arteries. I think all of that affected my vascular system.
Okay.
And my dad had died a year earlier from a heart attack. He died at 58 years old. Well, I'm 63 right now, so I've already outlived my dad.
Right.
And I don't think I'm going to die anytime soon, but we never really know when we're going to go.
True.
It's, we kind of might, if we get a disease and we're lingering for a while, we might know, but I'm not in that state right now. I'm in a healthy state.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You seem.
But so he died of a heart attack. And then a year later, I had my vascular disease pop up, and I didn't want to die. I never wanted to die.
Good.
Other than wanting to stay where I was when I was 12 and not come back. A lot of people have had like suicidal thoughts, or they want to die, or they want to get off this planet. Sometimes I might want to call up Elon Musk and go to Mars with him or something. But
I'm right there with you. I'll go.
Right. Yeah. But I've always wanted to live. I enjoy life. Right.
Yeah. Just like we were just saying, it's one of the best times to be alive, and having like the technology and stuff. I mean, I would never would have had this conversation. The odds are I probably would never had this conversation with you without, technology and Zoom. I mean, us being on the complete opposite sides of the country, that our past would have never met. And now that we could sit down and have a conversation like this is still mind blowing to me. I say it all the time on here, but it's wild that it's just so able to do that. And it's so cool at the same time, just because, we're connecting on a whole nother level that I never thought I would experience.
Well, it's to me, it's kind of a dichotomy. Here we got this thing called COVID, right?
Sure.
And as it popped up, it shut everything down, and we became disconnected from a lot of people initially. But then Zoom really became a vital part of connecting with people.
I agree.
Now we're connecting with people all around the world all day long. I'm on a couple Zoom calls a day, whether it's podcasting or coaching or some type of thing that I'm involved with, and connecting with people I never would have talked to.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe we never would have talked, but so kind of a positive side in, a roundabout way with COVID is it is connecting us more.
I agree.
The whole world, right?
I agree 100%. I've said that too before. That's one of the pros of COVID, that people were able to sit back, and that's when I started this podcast. It was I've said it. That life is. I was living off momentum. I'm not going to generally speak for everybody, but I was. And I was going through my motions, working at my job. I work in higher education, and I just hit 36 this year, and I was like, man, I'm 36. And I just put in 10 years at my full time job. I was like, man. Only when I first took that job, I said I was only going to be there 3 years.
Yeah.
It was one of those, I was going to use it as a stepping stone. And then now, I bought a house and I planted roots, and it was like, wow, man. And if I'm lucky, like you were talking about 36, all right, half that 72, I got a goal of living to 100. But I was like, I want to live. I want to start doing things and take chances on things and see what life has to offer to me. I'm not saying go take big risk and put all my money in the lottery and see, hopefully I win, but, but just doing things that, like that feed my mind or that feel like my mind wants that. It's like learning new things and having cool conversations. And, and there's a doctor I follow, Pat, gosh, I can't think of his last name now, but one of his things is like the key to longevity is challenging yourself every day, whether it's small or big.
Yeah.
And like doing these small little challenges and just keeping your mind active. And, and I'm not saying like you climb Mount Everest, but, like you said, go, start walking. And, when you went from 10 feet to 2 miles, and just do little things like that. That's, that it could be done, but it might be tough along the way. And then, you find out more about yourself.
Yeah. And one of the things that one of my goals this year, and it's kind of in some ways it's a small goal, in some ways it's kind of a big goal, but once a week, I climb up to the top of a ridge or a butte. I live in an area where there's a lot of buttes, and I live next to the mountains, so I have that opportunity.
What's a butte? A butte?
A butte. Well, in our case, we have a lot of volcanoes where I live in Central Oregon.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of volcanic buttes. Just imagine what a butte looks like.
I've never heard that before. Okay. No.
Yeah, and most of them, aren't like big, like you may have. Like Mount Hood is a butte. It's called Mount Hood, but it's essentially a butte. It's a volcanic butte.
Okay.
But it's a bigger one. But we have lots of smaller ones. There's hundreds of them. Hundreds. Some of them don't even have names to them, right?
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and so they're like out east from where I live, about 50 miles. They're everywhere, and you just drive down some gravel road for 50 miles, park, and go. I want to go up that butte. And there's no trails, and you just go up to the butte.
You just in the elevation can vary. Just depending.
It can vary, yeah, anywhere from probably 4,000 to 6,000 feet. So it's not real high,
but do you have to be almost?
Well, except for you in Virginia, that might be high.
Yeah, that's probably pretty good over here. But do you have to be pretty experienced to climb it, or is it just kind of navigating your own way and just
navigating my own way?
Ah.
And sometimes I'm out there alone. Sometimes I'm with a couple of buddies. This last Saturday, we went up on top of a ridge, not out in the desert in the buttes, but more in the mountains here, because we're right in the Cascades as well. And we like to go morel mushroom hunting, right? And we got a secret spot. We call it the secret spot because it's pretty popular around here. And we don't want anybody else to know about it. And we were headed up towards that area. And there was a ridge there, and we'd never been up it before. And we thought, we'll go up that ridge. We'll see what's up there. There's no trails. It's all off trail. And so we start going up this ridge, and we get up near the top, and there's these grass fields all over the place with, fist-size morel mushrooms. They're everywhere, more than what we could pick.
Okay.
Right? Because there's nobody that goes to that area. I mean, there might be one person every 3 years that goes where we were.
So you got the honey hole.
Yeah. So we found secret spot number 2.
Nice.
Right? But that's what happens when you get out there and explore and you find new things. And, whether it's going up a butte or whether it's, doing some, meditation type thing, whatever it is, whatever you want to do. Maybe it's you're into cars and you find out something new about a car. Yeah. Always exploring, always exercising your mind.
I agree 100%. I mean, when you go out alone on those, climbing those routes and stuff, is that part of your meditation process?
Oh, absolutely. It's part of feeling connected with earth and nature and God and the universe and all of that.
Yeah. I know you said earlier that, you were kind of mad at God, and was this kind of your way? I mean, if you don't want to answer this, I guess you don't want to, but I mean, have you got a better relationship now, or is this part of the healing process for yourself, or what?
Everything changed when I was 30, and I had gone out and drank way too much one night and ended up in the hospital the next morning with some alcohol poisoning.
Ooh.
And a friend of mine showed up, and, he kind of knew that I had been wild a little bit. And he said, "Are you ready?" And I knew exactly what he meant. And, he meant, are you ready to, live something different? Are you ready to live in a new way? And I knew right then and there that it was all over, that wild life, those wild times that I was going through. And I said I was ready. And it was one of the times in my life where experienced what I call a swoosh. It was like this swooshing feeling, like I knew it was over. I knew that anger towards God was gone. It was just gone. And I knew that something different was going to happen. So again, that was 33 years ago. So, and I haven't had a drop of alcohol since, or a cigarette, or, I mean, everything it was just removed. It's gone. Right.
You just stopped at cold turkey.
Just everything just gone. Yeah. Impressive. And my life is different today. You know, I used to have long hair. You know, this is actually kind of long right now.
It looks good, man.
Yeah.
I wish I still had mine.
Well, I've worked years, Chris, to get just this color of hair. You know, it's a lot of work.
I don't doubt it, man. I thought when I first started shaving my head, I thought it was a lot of work, but now it comes natural. It's
a breeze. Sure.
It's another thing. And I love it now. So I made it who I am.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great story. I love, stories like that where people, I don't know if you want to say you've hit rock bottom, but it sounds like, with alcohol poisoning, being into, laying in a bed or hospital bed, it's like, it's about time to start turning things around. And now look at you, the obstacles you've overcome. I always love stories like that. The guy gets the girl at the end of the book and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, get it, man.
Or he gets the rollerblader on Santa Monica.
It's a rollerblader, yeah. That's even better.
Yeah.
But did you ever picture your life going this direction, or did you have other thoughts in mind before these events happened? Or
I had no idea. I mentioned earlier on my dad was an entrepreneur, and he owned a bunch of gas stations. And when he died, he had about 100 gas stations, so he had quite a few.
Wow!
As well as a few other businesses as well. And I always thought that I was going to grow up in that business and do all of that. And late teens, early 20s, I started doing a lot of photography. I was doing portrait work and some weddings. I didn't like weddings because of the mother-in-laws always wanted the photos their way. Yeah. And, and then I was doing some multimedia type video work, as such as it was at the time. It's totally different now. But so I thought that I was going to go that route until the yoga. And mid 90s, I had made a bunch of money doing some option trading. And I took a couple of years off, and I went to this yoga training with the idea that it was going to help heal my body from my surgeries. And it did do that. And I had no intention to be a teacher. And a week later, after doing that, I started teaching. And I went to, have you heard of Bikram yoga?
No, I haven't. I just learned about Kundalini yoga not too long ago.
Okay. It's the hot stuff. You've heard of hot yoga.
I've heard of hot yoga. Yeah.
Well, Bikram was the guy that brought that to the United States.
Okay.
So I went to him. I was maybe teacher 100. Then I ended up leading about 30 teacher trainings and helping to train about 7,000 teachers. I owned a couple of yoga studios. I coached yoga studios all around the world in marketing and business, in getting them successful and operational. So I had no idea that yoga, doing this little bend right, bend left, twist a little bit idea was going to affect my life so much, and it just like, again, it was one of those things that changed everything.
Well, even nowadays that, when I first heard about yoga, I don't even remember when it was, but when my first, like everyone thought yoga was just for, hippy dippy, weird, just not really cool thing to do. But yeah, but in that case, like, are you going to go do yoga? What do you, you don't do that. And so, but now, I mean, it's got more, I guess more mainstream, and like, popular athletes incorporate it in their routines. And, and I take a couple of yoga classes. I've never done hot yoga, but I've wanted to, but it feels good, just stretching out your body and stuff. And then those poses and the relaxation and get, the mindfulness part of it too is great. And, and even CrossFit, I don't know how much you know about it, but they've kind of incorporated, their own version of yoga into it too, which I did, did that for a while. And it just, the poses and the stretching and just, like I said, the mindfulness, there's so many attributes and enhancements that, are so great that people just go unnoticed, I think sometimes. And I don't get to do it as much as I used to, but yeah, I mean, the times I have, I've enjoyed it.
Well, for me, I really feel like it's helped restore my body.
Sure.
And when the thousands of students and everybody that I've worked with over the years, and I taught a class today, I teach about 10 classes a month. I don't teach much anymore. And I sold the studios, but I see people, that they come in, they can barely move, and they're, hurt or injured or something. And within a month or a couple of months, they're totally different. Instead of standing in the back of the room, they're in the front of the room. Instead of wearing, full, long sleeve shirts and long pants, they're in like these little tiny outfits, and there's something like their self-esteem gets better. They get stronger, they get happier. The same thing can happen at a gym. Somebody starts going to a gym and start to work out, they can be all covered from head to toe as well. And then within a couple of months, it's totally different. They look different,
Exactly.
They wear something different, they're stronger, they're happier, they're now smiling where before they were depressed. And again, it's just moving the body.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's almost that, I don't know if it's society or culture, but it's almost that, these are not these easy little things like we were just talking about the bicep curls and just walking and stuff. It's not promoted anymore. That it's just more of just sit down all day, go stream, Netflix or whatever you want to do, which I do that too. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong against that, but I don't do it for 8 hours a day. And, but there's so many benefits, just these little things that, can add up. What is it? The compound effect. You do go take a small lap around your neighborhood. All right. Now next week, go do 2 laps. And then you see, like you just said, the new confidence, the way a person looks, how they feel about themselves. It's just, it's a whole new lifestyle. And it's a whole new way of living that is what the brain and the body wants.
Right. It is exactly what the brain and body want.
Exactly. It's just, for me, if I have a, like for a better word, a shit day at work or whatever, that, once I get down to my gym and that's my stress reliever, that's my social spot. That's where, that's my tribe, I guess you could say. And that really goes away. And during that hour, 2 hours or whatever I'm there, I coach a little bit too on the side, that it's just like, okay, I feel so much better that I came down here and did this, and it's just, it's just so great.
Well, it's a chemical change in our body.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
We start to drag down and drag down and drag down. And then we start moving again, it changes the chemistry in our body.
Do you think that there's an issue, isn't kind of what I was saying, that there's an issue with modern society and just that it's almost cool, or not, I don't want to say cool, but it's normal, the narrative, just go eat fast food, go home and sit. You don't really need to go do this. You don't have time. And that's just kind of what our society's become now. For example, I read there, I don't know if you heard this, but I was talking to somebody the other day and they said that in the Civil War era, the average American was 140, or the average male was 140 some pounds. And I think now today's it's 190 pounds.
Wow.
And the female was like 170, and I can't remember what it was back in the Civil War area, but that was, a little over 100 years ago. But it's like so much. And a lot of that's just like, oh, we need more food. We need more food. We need more food. That's what, everyone just wants to eat.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt about that. We want to eat. And if you look at the news, and let's say they're talking about COVID on the news, and then they go to a commercial break and they're telling us that we should take some drug that we can't even pronounce and we're a little uncertain what it's for, but the side effects seem more deadly than whatever it is you're taking the drug for.
Sure.
They want all of us to be on these drugs. And that's one thing that I've never had to do, is take any pharmaceuticals whatsoever.
Great.
And I hope I never do.
I hope you don't either. I hope you don't either, because I'm always very hesitant once somebody, I don't even like to take allergy medicine. Right. I'll take an Advil just because if I have it, and that's only if I have a bad enough headache where it's just like, all right, I'm out of resorts. But and I don't know what it is. I've never liked the fact of just saying, oh, you need to take this just so you feel better.
Maybe. And then the next commercial is for some fast food joint.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And then, and not to bring up, more COVID stuff, but it was like every news channel and everything was always sponsored by like Pfizer and stuff. And was like, what is going on here? Like how much, and then I've read studies and listened to other podcasts and just about how much corruption there is in the pharmaceuticals and as far as the studies they do. And like, for example, I'm reading a book called right now, it's called Sacred Cow. And one of the parts in it is just talking about how they release these studies of, like, oh, meat causes cancer or heart disease or whatever, but they don't tell you exactly, oh, well, with his meat, he was also eating, ice cream, French fries, drinking a Coke, and and probably eating what did he have on that burger too? And he was eating 3 of them at one time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they forget to mention those parts of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe one episode I'll bring it down. I've got a quarter pounder I bought. God, it's been almost 10 years ago. Quarter pounder with cheese.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't eat it. I left it in its box, and it's in my kitchen up on a shelf right now, and it still looks like the day I bought it.
You're kidding.
No, it's rock hard, but no mold, no nothing, and it still looks like a quarter pounder.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've taken a couple of pictures and put them on my Facebook page a couple of times over the years. I think it's probably 10 years old, 9 or 10 years old.
Yeah, food ain't supposed to do that, people. If you're listening to this, yeah.
So go buy a quarter pounder, right?
Yeah.
No pickle, quarter pounder with cheese, no pickle, unless you like pickle. And just put it in a box. Take a picture of it. Wait a year. Take another picture of it. It will look the same.
Does it smell or anything?
No smell at all. No mold.
No bugs are coming after it to eat on it?
No bugs. What? They don't eat that crap.
That's saying something right there. If there's nothing else eating that, and then we're slopping it down our bodies,
Yeah. I can't tell you the last time I bought a hamburger from McDonald's and ate it. I mean, it's been
that's good.
15 years ago. I don't know, because it's been awesome. 10 years since I bought that one.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I don't, and I'm not, a pure health nut. I don't mind go get a burger or anything, but
sure.
But fast food, I mean, it doesn't even appeal to me much anymore. Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things that if I'm on the road or whatever, and I absolutely cannot find anything else, I usually just stop. I usually just get something small or whatever. Yeah. I do like Chick-fil-A. I will say that I will mess up some Chick-fil-A.
I've never been through there.
Yeah, but that's literally just maybe one day a week or every other week. That's not like an everyday thing for me. I'm typically a meat and fruit kind of guy, and that's what my body works well off of. And it took me a while to learn it. Yeah. So,
well, this week I'm eating a lot of morel mushrooms.
What is this a morel mushroom? What is that? I was going to ask that earlier. Is it just a regular mushroom?
Well, no, not really. Morel mushroom, there's different types of mushrooms that I generally pick. Now, the people that are listening can't see this, but you might be able to see this, or people that are viewing this.
They'll see it on the YouTube version if you're watching it.
Right.
Okay.
So that's a morel mushroom, right?
Okay.
So again, it's a little hard to see there. Maybe.
Okay.
And it's hard to tell in that picture. It looks smaller, but that's almost the size of a fist.
Wow, it's huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And the stem down here below is probably 3 inches wide.
Wow.
They were really big. So not all mushrooms are edible. Well, they're all edible, but some of them only once. Right? Right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
It will kill you, right? So you got to know which ones you're to go for.
Sure.
And there's morels, one of them that I like. Chanterelles I get in the fall. But Chris, the thing that I like about doing this, and this is where we were up on the ridge the other day, we found all these mushrooms up there, and we picked shopping bags full. I mean, just huge amount, right?
Sure.
And so I'm going to be eating mushrooms every night for the next week, right? A lot of mushrooms, which is fine. Yeah. But you go out there in nature, and it's just like nature's providing you with this food, right? So I get to come home and make rice bowls and put yum sauce on it, or, sriracha or whatever, with a bunch of veggies and rice. And I got myself a meal right from Mother Earth, so to speak, right?
Yeah, and that works pretty well for you, I would assume, based on what we've been talking about as far as health and longevity. It seems like it is.
I love it. Yeah. And supposedly it's good for your heart and in your vascular system and everything else. I don't know if that's for sure, but it doesn't really matter. I still like it if I'm happy eating it. Where some foods I'm not happy eating, like that quarter pounder.
That's it.
But I'm happy eating this. It makes a difference.
Exactly. That's what, a lot of it is just playing with different things and finding out how your body reacts to it and just saying, like, how do I feel after eating this? And I'm there. That's, like I said, I'm a meat and fruit kind of guy. And I feel like next morning I don't have, brain fog. My body feels good. I'm able to go get my training in. But there's other days, when, me and my buddies go out and we get a pizza, maybe a beer or two. Then like, next morning, it's like, I don't feel it. I don't feel as sparky as I usually do. But like I said, that's not an everyday thing for me. And a lot of people, I'm generally speaking, of course, they go through life and they don't understand just making these small little changes, I think, and just what they're putting in their body. Like, you don't have to always put in these pills just to say, because the doctor says it's going to make you feel better. Hey, look at what you're eating.
It's like your car. If your car takes regular gas and you put a bunch of pasta in there with it, it's not going to run very well.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I agree 100%.
So you have to use the food that's required to make everything work.
It's a great analogy.
And the foods that I eat may be different than the food you eat. I mean, what's one man's food is another man's poison. Have you heard that before?
I haven't heard that before, but I like that. I remember that.
So what works for you may not work for me and vice versa.
Yeah, that's a problem with diet culture. There's no one diet that fits all,
Right.
That it's all, everyone's different. And you just got to find out what works for you. And I love that analogy because somebody else told me that one time, except they use sugar, like how you wouldn't put sugar in your car, would you?
Right.
Well, I guess not. I guess I'll give it what it needs. So
I heard a study about all the food and all the diets and all these things, trying to figure out which one of these diets work best, because there's a million different diets.
I know.
And the conclusion was rather simple, that it didn't really matter what it was as long as you ate less. Right?
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. But I mean, essentially we eat too much food.
I agree.
And I've heard it said that about 80% of the food is just waste, that we only use about 20%. We pull the vitamins and minerals out. Well, what's left, we pull that out, and that's all we really need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how the body works. It's going to take what it needs. And then obviously when you start overfilling it, it's got to like, where are we going to put all this stuff at? And that's what it does. It's like, yeah, exactly. We got to do something with it if we can't get rid of it. So
yeah, I'd rather climb up a ridge and get some mushrooms.
It's just like we've been saying this the whole time. It's just little things like that. This makes so much sense, and that it's not rocket science. It's or Mars science or Elon Musk science. It's something so easy that if you don't mind taking a little time, sitting down, maybe writing how you feel after eating something, researching a little bit, that you make these positive changes. I mean, look at you. I mean, I'm loving it. That you could have quit at any time. When you were 30 and just said, well, hell with it. I guess this is my life now. I ain't going to try to do anything else. Yeah. But you came and rise up. I love it, man.
Yeah. Yeah. You're talking about hitting bottom. I probably hit lower than bottom.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Lower than bottom.
Just because of everything that, from my accident to being a little too wild to my surgeries. We all go through stuff.
Sure.
Everybody has their own adversity that we get challenged by.
I agree 100%.
But really, it's sometimes until we get into that adversity, we don't change. We keep doing whatever we're doing until it hurts enough. It's kind of like first we get tapped and, then we get hit a little bit harder, then a 2x4 across the head, and then it might take a Mack truck before we finally make a change, right?
Oh, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And that's one thing that, I don't want people to go down that road or have that happen, but it does exactly what you said. People need that hit in the head or whatever to be like, these past 10 years of me eating quarter pounders is not probably doing too well for me. And or, I mean, even not food related, but if you have a goal in life, if you wanted to I don't know, own 100 gas stations. I mean, you sitting around watching Netflix is not going to get you anywhere, you know?
No, not at all.
And what sucks is that, somebody close to my life, and I'm not going to call them out or anything, but they went to a car dealership or something recently, and the owner was out there, and he was passing out, Bible verses and just talking about hard work and, how he kind of came from nothing, and he's so thankful for where he's at now. And and that person immediately just went into this negative zone and was like, well, that could have been, I don't understand why that was me or that wasn't me. How come I don't have, a couple car dealerships and doing really well? And I was like, well, I mean, did you want to do a car dealership? I mean, was that part of your plan, or are you just mad because, you didn't do the work or take whatever the sacrifices that they or not a person, just anybody trying to do something big with their life. You just didn't do the work. You just didn't do the sacrifices. And that guy probably did. And he's lucky enough to be out on top.
Yep.
So it's just like and then you go down this negative train. It's like, no, just listen, it's not all about you. It's part of you. Just, you should be mad at yourself more than not the other people, Yeah.
Yeah. And at the same time, it's not too late.
Exactly. Right.
It's never too late. Do you know who, I can't think of her name. Louise Hayes is?
Louise Hayes.
Have you ever heard that name?
I don't think so.
She ended up owning a publishing company called Hay House. Big publishing company.
I don't know it.
It's published, I don't know how many books, tons of books. At 57 years old, she was bouncing checks. By 62 years old, she was a multimillionaire.
Wow.
A couple of years. And she died in her 90s a few years ago. And, multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
It was one of the biggest publishers on the planet.
Wow.
But she didn't start till, her late 50s, early 60s. It's never too late.
Exactly. That's a good point. And it's, age is, I don't know. What am I trying to say? That, like I said, I just turned 36 recently, but I don't feel 36. But again, you have your whole life to do something. And I know we just touched on this, but if you want to do something, you have everything at your fingertips now.
Yeah.
Sit down and talk about people like with your life path. Go listen to a podcast. Go on YouTube. There's ways to do it. It might not be the exact way that, it can be done. But if you want to help Elon Musk, colonize Mars.
Yeah.
Might get lucky.
I mean, and I don't know what the listeners think about Elon. I mean, you love him or hate him.
I like him.
And at the same time, I don't blame him for wanting to go to another planet.
Yeah, why not, right? Yeah, no, I agree. There's a lot of people, you either love him or hate him, but he's doing a lot for this country, and he's a smart guy. And I don't know how you get on that level of smartness, but he's doing big things, and you can't fault him for that. I mean, do I agree with everything he does? Probably not, but like right now, I don't know if you heard this, but he's making that Neuralink, which and which, for those who don't know, but basically, and you can correct me if I mess this up, but basically the way I took it is that somebody who is a paraplegic, they could put this Neuralink in their brain and it would bypass the spine and they would be able to actually walk again. Yeah. And then I think there's part of it, like you would have your cell phone inside your brain and be able to look up countless information and stuff like that.
That may be too far. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
It's just like, really, like part robot, part human. I mean, squirmy about that one.
This might be a little off topic, but do you think that's kind of the future of our civilization, our species? Because that's what seems to be more of what people, artificial intelligence and
AI could be taken over.
Yeah, it's what it seems like. That's the direction we're heading in.
Yeah, I mean, you can't even go to, like, here's a barcode on the back of the book, right?
Okay.
You can't really buy anything without this barcode anymore. You can't even buy a banana without a barcode.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
A can of soup. Oh, this can of soup doesn't have a barcode, and it takes them 10 minutes to figure out how to charge you.
What do we do?
That's all AI stuff, right?
Yeah.
Or it's like I'll use my bank card, like at the grocery store, my UBank card, right? I'll stick it in, and I got my phone on me, and before I can get that card out of that thing, my phone is beeping saying I just charged something.
Yep. That's what.
How does that happen?
Dude, it's just people with minds like Elon, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like somebody, He actually even called ourselves a cyborg. Speaking of that, just because he was on a podcast I was listening to, and that, yeah, because we don't go anywhere without our phones, and if we go somewhere without it, we instantly think something's wrong, we're missing it. And I'm an addict like everybody else. I mean, like I probably play on mine too much than I should, but yeah, it's part of just who I am now. It's just especially, but it's so easy at the same time. If I needed to go look up what the Morel mushroom is, I could easily just give me a minute.
Yeah.
So there is some benefits to it, and I like it because I was like, I'm going to ask that later. We got to go look it up in case I forget, but.
Yeah, I'm sure there's morels around where you live.
That's what I was keep wondering. And I like mushrooms. I eat them, but I've never, going off what you said, I've never went out and hunted for them just because, like you said, they're all edible, but I don't want to eat one that one last time. And never, if I had somebody who would probably go out with me and kind of teach me, like, hey, that's probably okay. Yeah. Like this has good benefits to whatever. Like there's a lot of reports, and this might be a little off topic too, that, who was it? Johns Hopkins University. They're actually doing more work with certain mushrooms like psilocybin, I think. Hopefully that's great. Yeah, but how it actually regrows receptors and stuff in the brain, like people who've had concussions and have suffered some type of brain trauma. But there's actually a lot of healing effects with mushrooms they're learning.
Yeah, and I have not dived into that a lot, like psilocybin mushrooms and hallucinogenics, all the way from regrowing things to addictions. I mean, all sorts of things are finding uses for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I know we kind of talked about God a little bit on here, but, that's one of the theories of life is that's why, our brains doubled in size over, what is it, a span of 1 million years or something. It was part of like mushrooms and us figuring out how to cook food and, or use fire to cook food and get more nutrients out of it.
And if you look at your, like a picture of some of these mushrooms, it looks like your brain, Here's a different one. Looks a little different. I don't know whether you can see it.
Yeah, right. I can see it pretty good right there. Yeah, that actually looks like looking at a bird's eye view of the brain.
Yeah, it looks like a brain.
Yeah,
right?
I can see it.
Yeah, so you would think that would be good for you. It looks like your brain. Maybe if you eat more of it. Now this one, can you see this one?
I can right there.
You don't want to eat that one. If you come across that one, don't eat it.
Don't eat it. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be poisonous once to you, right?
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Don't eat it. But it's kind of like a squish brain, right? It looks kind of weird. And even when you see it, it looks kind of like, doesn't look quite right.
So what, you think you should look ones that look like a brain? Is that what you're saying?
Well, the other one, which looks like a brain, and the morels, the texture of it's kind of brain-like,
sure,
right?
Sure.
And they're really good, and they're good for you. They're not poisonous, right? But like that other one I showed you, it just looks kind of weird.
Yeah.
Got a little kind of slimy look to it. And it's just like, I don't think so. Right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of mushrooms out there that we bypass. I mean, because there's tons of other ones there, but there was only a couple that we wanted to eat. Right?
Do you know, and kind of going back a little bit in history again, I forgot the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yep.
Yeah, so part of it, I think, and I might butcher this. I haven't talked about this in a little bit, but was it Dead Sea Scrolls? I think it was part of that. Part of these religions, they found these old, like canisters or pots, but they actually found signs of psychedelics or mushrooms in the pots or cans of it. And they're like, oh, were they using these in religions or the rituals to drink? And, and that's another, like the University of Jerusalem said that's the reason why Moses saw God, because the acacia bush actually releases hallucinogenics when it's burning. So,
oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and I might be butchering that, so don't take me fully on that, but that's the gist of what it is.
No, I'm going to hold you to that, Chris.
Please don't write me a bad review.
If it's not right, you're going to hear from me.
but yeah, so so it's interesting. I'm not saying like that's great or that's absolutely 100% truth, but it's like, well, there might be something to it, and I would, like to dig into it a little bit. But yeah, but it's interesting that it seems like with mushrooms and like we're just saying eating them, and there's a lot of great effects that could be something there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree, and I think the planet and between the animals and all the different plants and all of that, we're really provided with everything that we need. So we tend to mess things up quite a bit. And, like beef cattle, what they do the last couple of weeks of their life is pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
What they do to fat them up and
I agree.
all that before slaughter. And
I don't agree with factory farming, but
but you can go out and you can shoot a deer or an elk or a bear or whatever that's growing or living off the land, where the meat, the venison, is so much better for you.
I've heard that. I've heard that you're basically eating another athlete. That it's an animal that's pure and is so much greater. Like you said, they don't get out there and just fatten them up off grain or whatever.
Right. No antibiotics.
Yeah. So and again, that's part of that book I'm reading. They kind of argue, the values of certain animals based on, or like factory farming, as far as ethically, nutrition, and environmentally even too. So, and there was something that if you go back to our ancestral and our ancestors or whatever, that's what they did. They would go kill a deer and hopefully they killed something. But there's a lot more. There's a great nutrition to that, and it's something. That's the reason I started like shooting bow a little bit, just because it's like one day I would like to do that rather than just, especially since now every other day I hear there's a food shortage going on. So,
well, and it might get worse too.
That's what I keep hearing.
So,
but Mike, I wanted to ask that, almost everything we've been talking about tonight was this, and I feel like I already know the answer to this question, but was this part of the reason or the motivation behind your book, or what was your motivation?
Well, the motivation, and this is the book, right? It's called Falling Down, Getting Up. And it was actually released 10 years ago, next month. And we're doing another promotion, another campaign next month to bring it back to number one.
Nice.
I brought it up to number one. I had a list of almost 700,000 people that we mailed out to. And I did right back there is a picture of myself and Jack Canfield, if you know who he is, Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Oh, yeah. I know that book. Okay. Yeah.
So he joined my launch for this book. And, one of the things he likes to say is your mess is your message, right?
Okay.
And then J. Conrad Levinson, which is the father of Guerrilla Marketing, forwarded the book. He normally only would forward marketing books, but I got him my manuscript and he read it twice in one day. And he said, this is like guerrilla marketing. You found what works, the simple things, the walking, the moving, just those simple things that change the state of your health. And that's the same idea like within guerrilla marketing. You find a couple little simple things that work and you go for it. You use those things over and over and over to develop your marketing, to develop your campaigns.
Yeah.
And so the book is really, when I wrote it, it was really designed for somebody, especially, a man, 30 to 40 years old, about what I was, and was looking for some type of hope. Maybe they were struggling with some type of adversity or trying to overcome something and they needed some inspiration. That's what that book was originally written for. Today, 10 years later, people are still buying it, and they're buying it for all sorts of reasons. And, all sorts of different people have written me with different ailments, say, I didn't have the same thing you did, but because of this book, I now know I can overcome it, or I have overcome it. Or somebody will say, I didn't have anything close to what you did, but my business was struggling. And I realized, like what Jay said, about you in your book, is that you can overcome anything. It doesn't matter. It's never too late, right? It's like the Louise Hayes idea. You can be bouncing checks at 57, multimillionaire by, 62, right?
I agree.
It doesn't matter.
Exactly. You just stay true to the course, man, and just go through the hard times, but eventually you keep grinding. Good things happen.
Right. So I don't know when this episode's going to be released, but the book, if somebody wants a free copy of the book, they can't find this on my website, but if they go to michaelbharris.com/book. So michaelbharris.com/book.
Okay.
Again, if you go to michaelbharris.com, you won't find that link. You've got to enter the book. It's a hidden link, right? Sure. And you can go in there and download it for free.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Michael,
they can buy it on Amazon if they want.
That's what most people probably end up doing. The easier.
Yeah.
Michael, I think we should take it home on that. I'll end this on a good note right there. So again, you just said where people can find the book, but if they want to find you or more information, or if you want to plug anything, feel free to.
Well, I do want to mention something, because this is a huge passion for me, Chris. And, over my life, I realize how important stories are. And this is what's so great too about your show, and just celebrating your 100th episode, is you're helping to get different people's stories out into the world, their thoughts, their ideas, their perceptions. And, it's some different topics that you have. And right now in the world, there's so many places where our voices are suppressed and we're not allowed to say even certain words, or you're going to go to jail for 15 years.
Sure.
Where we are right now, we're able to talk about whatever we want to talk about. And I think it's important that I tell my story. I think it's important that you tell your story. Susan tell her story, all these different stories. It's like thousands of years ago, we used to sit around a campfire and tell stories.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
And it's the way that we learn. It's the way that communicate. It's the way that we get healthier. Us talking about just going out and taking a walk, that simple idea. Somebody will go, holy shit, it's that easy. It almost sounds too easy, but they're going to go out and do it. A listener to this show is going to go out and walk and have a better life because of it. I know it is, right?
I agree.
So that idea of telling stories is really important to me right now. And I met a guy through a mastermind that I was involved in a few years ago, a guy named Sean Tyler Foley, and he grew up as an actor, and he's still acting and speaking and training. And we both had this passion for stories, so we started something called Endless Stages.
Yeah, I think I interviewed him.
You may have.
I think he's been on my, well, I don't think I've released the episode yet, but I'm pretty sure I did an episode.
Yeah, you may have. I don't think I saw him on your list.
Yeah, yep, I did one with him. I just haven't released it yet. It's coming out soon.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we're both through Podmatch. Right now, I'm number one on Podmatch.
I saw that.
He's normally number one, but I knocked him off the top.
Yeah.
Right?
Nice.
So we're really passionate about helping people get their stories out, whether it's on stage, on podcasts, through marketing, whatever. So that passion, for what we've, with both what Tyler and I have done over the years is, come to this place to where it's just like, okay, let's help people get their stories out. So that's what we're doing.
Love it.
And they can find out more info just by going to michaelbharris.com. There's a link there. You can join our group. It's a free group. And inside of that free group, we have, 8 or 10 different videos on how to speak, get your speaking out. They're all free. Download a couple of different books and PDFs and join, a group of like-minded people that are getting their stories out too. Zero, costs nothing.
That's awesome, man. That's even the best thing. It costs nothing. People can get it at any time they want. That's the best way.
Now that they can hire us if they want, but it's like the information we give out.
Sure.
The free information we give out is better than a lot of people's paid information, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So we're passionate about helping people get out there, get their story out.
That's awesome, man. Just help people get out of their own way, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, Michael, thanks for doing this, man. This was a great conversation.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
Thanks for being here. And anything else you want to say before we call it a night?
No, I'm just, I've said this a couple of times, congratulations on everything that you're doing. And I like your conversations about loose cows because it's like our conversation. I mean, we're talking about loose mushrooms, right?
Yeah.
But we're talking about real life and what's going on out there. So big kudos to you for what you're doing to help people get their story out and
I appreciate
having these conversations.
Very, very, I really appreciate that a lot. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, thank you also for being here and having this conversation with me. I've got some good pearls and gems, and I've loved enjoying learning about your story. So
great. Yeah.
Cool. All right, everybody. We're out of here. Good night.
Good night.